Hey, book lovers! Welcome to While I Read. Today, I'm going to be recommending middle grades books that your kids will enjoy this summer. And if you're like me, you'll enjoy these books too. Middle grades books are supposed to be for kids about 8 to 12 years old, but I'm much older than 12 and I still like reading these books. I've got a guest here who's a lot younger than 8 and she still loves reading these books. This is my little girl. Tell him what your name is.
Sarah.
This is Sarah. And Sarah loves reading some of these books. How old are you, Sarah?
5.
5 years old. Sarah just had her graduation from pre-K today. And so we're going to talk about one of Sarah's favorite books first. Sarah, what is your favorite book for Mama to read to you?
Garnet.
It's upside down. We like Garnet. What's the real name of Garnet is Thimble Summer, but the girl in it is named Garnet. Why do you like Garnet so much, Sarah?
Because she walked away from home.
Yeah, there's one part where Garnet runs away from home. Are you going to run away from home?
No.
No, don't do that. What else do you like in Garnet? What's another part you like?
Derek.
There's a boy named Eric who, for some reason, the silly calls Eric Derek, which is not his name. What about when they get locked up in the library?
Well, the family found them.
But their family found them. Spoiler alert. So that's Sarah's favorite book for Mama to read to her, Garnet by Elizabeth Enright. We lost Sarah. She got bored and decided she wanted to go play somewhere else. But the number one book on my list for middle grades readers is Surviving the Applewhites by Stephanie S. Tolan. This is the sequel to it, The Applewhites at Wit's End. It's a much prettier copy than my copy of Surviving the Applewhites. These are both great books for middle grades readers. They're about a creative family called the Applewhites. The mom is a famous author, the dad is a sculptor, and the whole extended family is full of artists and actors. So they live on a farm in North Carolina, basically a kind of compound where the whole family lives. The only one in the family who is not creative is Edie. She is 12 years old and she just wants her life to be organized and follow rules, which is something that her chaotic family just doesn't do. Some chapters in the book are from Edie's point of view, and other chapters are from the point of view of a 12-year-old boy named Jake Semple. Jake is known as a troublemaker. He's been kicked out of multiple schools, and going to the Applewhites homeschool is his last chance before being sent to a juvenile detention center. So Jake is living with this crazy family and going to their homeschool as his last chance before juvie. While he's living there, the dad, Randolph Applewhite, is directing a version of the musical, The Sound of Music. There are all kinds of problems with the play that he's directing, and so they end up moving the play to the Applewhites' farm and putting it on in their barn with lots of members of the family in starring roles. Jake ends up getting a role in the play. And Edie becomes the stage manager, getting to use her talent for organization. The book is a hilarious screwball comedy that will have you and your kids laughing the whole time. There are actually 2 other books in the Applewhites series. The Applewhites at Wit's End, which is about the family turning their farm into a camp for kids. And there's also a 3rd book called The Applewhites Coast to Coast, which is about them traveling the country. It's not as good, but I still enjoyed it. So this is a great book for your kids to read this summer or for you to read to your kids. It'll work for a girl or a boy because it has a girl protagonist, Edie, and a boy protagonist, Jake. Number 2 on my list is The Penderwicks by Jean Birdsall. The Penderwicks is actually a series with 4 books in it. The books are about the 4 sisters in the Penderwick family: Rosalind, Skye, Jane, and Batty, with alternating chapters focusing on each sister. The actual title of the first book is The Penderwicks, a summer tale of 4 sisters, 2 rabbits, and a very interesting boy. The Penderwick sisters live with their dad. Their mother has passed away when they were very little. This first book is about their summer adventures when they go on vacation to a place called Arundel Cottage. They meet a boy named Jeffrey who becomes a big part of their lives. There are also some fun adult characters like the housekeeper Churchy, who makes the best chocolate chip cookies ever, as well as Jeffrey's mean mom, Mrs. Tifton. This is an old-fashioned book. It reminds me a lot of classics like Anne of Green Gables or The Secret Garden, but it might be a little easier for kids today to read because it's written by a modern author. The sisters have adventures like getting chased by a bull or getting stuck in trees while trying to sneak out of a house. It's just a very fun, wholesome book to read. Like I said, there are 4 books in the series. My favorite is the second book, The Penderwicks on Gardam Street. That book is set during the fall and features the Penderwicks doing things like going to school, acting in plays, trick-or-treating for Halloween, and lots of other fun activities. I just love this whole series, and I think you and your kids will too. The book is about 4 sisters, so it might be better for girls and boys, but you could try it with a boy and see. Number 3 on my list is The Islanders by Mary Alice Monroe. The Islanders is written from the point of view of a 10-year-old boy named Jake. Jake has to spend the summer with his grandmother on a tiny island called Dewees Island. This island is a nature sanctuary, so there are no cars or paved roads. They ride everywhere on golf carts. And to Jake's horror, his grandmother does not have Wi-Fi or cable TV, and Jake can't use his cell phone. So he thinks it's going to be a terrible summer. But he immediately makes friends with 2 other kids, a boy named Macon, who is there for the summer like Jake, and a girl named Lovey, who lives on the island year-round and is able to show the boys the ropes. The book is about Jake's summer adventures on the island, how he learns to have fun without the modern conveniences that he's used to, and how he gets closer to his grandmother. It's really good, and there's a sequel to it called Search for Treasure. The Islanders has a boy as the main character, and I think it would be really good for boys or girls. Your kids will love to read it this summer. I read it just a couple of years ago, so obviously I think adults will enjoy it too, or at least weird adults like me who like to read children's books. Numbers 4 and 5 on my list are basically every book by Elizabeth Enright. Elizabeth Enright is the author of Thimble Summer, the book that Sarah recommended at the beginning of this video that she calls Garnet. She is also the author of Gone Away Lake and Return to Gone Away. These books are about a girl named Portia, her cousin Julian, and her brother Foster, and how they spend the summer at Julian's home and they discover a dried up lake. It's now a swamp, but it used to be a vacation community. It has lots of homes there that are now old and falling apart, but at one time it was a beautiful vacation community. The lake dried up and the community faded away, but the houses were just left there. But Portia, Foster, and Julian discover that there are actually 2 people who are still living there. Both books in the series are all about Portia, Foster, and Julian's summer adventures. playing in the swamp, exploring this old abandoned community, and getting to know the people who still live there. The books are really wholesome and fun. The books were written and take place in the 1950s, and they might be a bit hard for modern children to get into just because they have different slang phrases, they're set in a different time, but they are worth the extra effort because they're really good. Portia, a girl, is really the main character, but I think that these books would work for boys or girls. In addition to the Gone Away Lake books, Elizabeth Enright has another series that I love, and that is the Melindy Quartet. This is a set of 4 books that's about the Melindy family, which is a family of 4 children: Mona, Rush, Randy, and Oliver. This series was written and takes place during the 1940s, so it's a little old-fashioned, but so good. My favorite in the series is actually the 4th book, I believe. It's called And Then There Were 5. It's about the Melindy family living on a farm, having summer adventures, including going on picnics, stargazing, swimming in lakes, and just all around having a fun summertime. The Melindy family also loves to put on shows where they dance and act, and these are always some of my favorite sections of the book. Again, these are just fun, wholesome summer books. These would be good for both boys or girls because they focus on male and female characters. As I said, Elizabeth Enright is one of my favorite authors, and I just can't recommend her books highly enough. Number 6 on my list is The BFG by Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl is another of my all-time favorite authors. He wrote a lot of well-known children's books that have been made into movies like Matilda, The Witches, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The BFG will always be my favorite Roald Dahl book because it's the first book that I can remember reading on my own and really loving. It's the book that made me a reader and ultimately started me on the path of making this YouTube channel. The BFG is about a little orphan girl named Sophie who wakes up one night and sees a giant outside of her window. He takes Sophie back with him to giant country. She discovers that he is actually a nice giant, the big friendly giant, but the other giants in giant country are very, very bad. They have names like the Flesh Lump Eater and the Maiden Masher, and they go and eat children every night for their supper. So Sophie and the BFG come up with a plan to stop these bad giants. Their plan involves going to Dream Country and getting a dream, a nightmare actually, that the BFG calls a Trogglehumper, to give to the bad giants, and then visiting the Queen of England to make sure that she stops these bad giants from eating children every night. This book, like all Roald Dahl books, is so fun and imaginative with made-up words and crazy adventures. I read it aloud to Sarah when she was 4. I think I first read it when I was about 7 or 8, and I still love to reread it now. There is a movie version of it now, and it's pretty good, but if you're a reader, you know that the book is always better than the movie. I think you and your kids will love to read this book this summer. Book number 7 on my list is Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. Lois Lowry is another author who I could recommend all of her books, but for this video, I'm just going to focus on one. Number the Stars is set in Denmark in 1943, and it's about a little girl named Anne Marie Johansen. Anne Marie remembers a happy life before the war started, but her life has been harder since then. Her older sister, Lise, was killed in an accident, and as the book starts, Anne Marie's best friend, Ellen Rosen, and her family are facing relocation because they're Jewish. Ellen ends up staying with Anne Marie and her family for a while, and Anne Marie's mother takes Anne Marie, Ellen, and Anne Marie's sister Kirsten to the country. The book is about some of the terrible things that Jewish people endured during World War II, and it brings those things home, but it also has some moments of fun and lightness as well. It has scenes in the country where Anne Marie is milking a cow and where the girls find a kitten that they adopt. And it also has some really tense scenes where German soldiers come to search the Johansons' apartment when Ellen is staying with them. And a scene where Anne Marie has to take something important to her uncle and she's stopped in the woods by German soldiers. It's very suspenseful and exciting. It's a good way for kids to start learning about the horrors of the Holocaust without being too intense. If your kids like this book, there are many other great books by Lois Lowry, including her Giver quartet as well as the Anastasia series. Number of the Stars has a girl as the main character, but I think it would be a great read for either girls or boys. Book number 8 is A Year Down Yonder by Richard Peck. A Year Down Yonder is about a 15-year-old girl named Mary Alice who has to leave her home in Chicago to spend a year in a tiny town with her grandma Dowdle. Her grandma Dowdle is a great character. She's tough, she's feisty, she's funny, and she makes sure that Mary Alice never has a dull moment while she's living with her. There are some very funny chapters, like when boys in town are knocking over people's outhouses as a Halloween prank, and Grandma Dowdle rigs a trap to make sure that they don't knock over hers. There are also some touching chapters where Mary Alice learns to appreciate and love her Grandma Dowdle. Each chapter is its own separate story, so it's a really quick, easy book to read. This book is actually a sequel to A Long Way from Chicago, which is about Mary Alice's brother Joey spending summers with Grandma Dowdle. Both books are really good and would be great for your kids to read this summer. Number 9 on my list is the Mrs. Pigglewiggle series by Betty McDonald. There are several books in this series. This first one was published in 1947, and they make great read-alouds for very young kids, like 6, 7, 8 years old. Mrs. Pigglewiggle is an old lady who all the children in town love. She's always making cookies. She lives in an upside-down house. She was once married to a pirate. So there's all kind of neat things about her. Best of all, she can cure children of almost any ailment. Not ailments as in sicknesses, but she can cure things like children not taking baths, or children who won't pick their toys up, or children who eat too slowly. So each chapter tells a separate story about Mrs. Pigglewiggle helping some kid. So there's chapter 2, the won't pick up toys cure, or chapter 6, the never want to go to bedders cure. The cures are always very creative and funny. I haven't read any of these books to Sarah yet, but I want to soon. I loved these books as a kid, and I still love them now. Like I said, you can read these aloud, or if your child is starting to read on their own, they'd probably enjoy reading the Mrs. Pigglewiggle stories. They would be good for both boys or girls because the different stories in the books are about boys and girls. The last book I'll talk about is The Wanderer by Sharon Creech. The Wanderer is about a girl named Sophie and a boy named Cody who are sailing from Connecticut all the way across the Atlantic to England. Their boat is called The Wanderer, and their crew is made up of Sophie and her cousin Cody, who are both 13, as well as Sophie's 3 uncles. Some chapters are from Sophie's point of view, and some are from Cody's. The book is all about the adventures that they have on their long journey. They see a lot of beautiful sights, they do a lot of fun things. They also sail through some dangerous storms and face other dangerous situations. They learn a lot about sailing, they learn how to be brave, and they learn some secrets about their family. It's been a long time since I read this book, but I remember that I loved both Sophie and Cody, and I enjoyed reading the descriptions of sailing. It's a great book that adventure loving kids might enjoy reading this summer. So, there you have it, 10 books that your kids might like to read this summer, and that you'll probably like too. Please let me know if you or your kids read and enjoy any of these books. Please also let me know any good kids' books that you recommend. And as always, if you liked this video and want to see more book recommendations and reviews, please subscribe to my channel. Now, go play outside while I read.